G'day folks, this is the next item on the list of jobs to be done. I have to fit rods and bell cranks up to my manual point levers to operate the points. At the moment I've got two of them fitted up, and you can see the run of rod along the bottom of the baseboard there. I've also fitted micro switches onto each point to activate indicator lights on the control panel. This is point number 1 working, and point number 2. Point number 1 and point number 2 are two curved points on the end of the layout that allow a train to pass from the main up line to the main down line, or vice versa. I've set it up so that when you pull both levers backwards, like so, the points are set to cross over to the main lines, and when you push them both back, they're set in a straight ahead position. To achieve this, point number 2 had to have this extra linkage put in, or bell crank, or whatever you want to call it, to actually reverse the throw of the point. Otherwise the lever would be in the backward position all the time. What it does, it makes both levers pull in the same direction but have the opposite. One has the opposite effect, if that makes sense. So you can see that it just, as it pulls back on the right, it pushes forward on the left, which has the same throw as point number 1. Sounds a bit complicated. This is point number 2 operating, and you can get an idea of just how the micro switch is activated. As the rod comes down, it just touches the little wheel on the lever for the micro switch. You may be able to hear it clicking on and off. I've got a bit of extra rod hanging out there on the left which needs to be trimmed off as well, although it doesn't really matter, it doesn't get in the way. It's always good to have a bit of extra just for adjustment. Again, this is point number 2, and there's the mechanism moving through the brass hinge. The system I have here is a pop rivet fitted into the end of the brass piece there, which is out of a terminal block. It's quite effective. This is point number 1, and you'll notice that it's a slightly different setup, but you know, obviously the micro switch is pretty much the same. The hinge has been cut down a bit, but it's the same principle, and obviously it doesn't have to be on a right angle. It still works quite well off at this other angle, which is maybe 120, possibly 110. No problem at all. This is one of the terminal blocks with the pop rivet fitted through it. It just meant drilling through the hole that the screw would normally go through and putting a hole there to suit the rivet, and reversing the way the rivet actually works. Just pushing it in under pressure, but it's there to stay, and quite effective. Fairly rigid too. I would prefer a bit more play, or a bit of spring in it, but it's okay, it works fine. So there we have it.